Welcome to Corralling the Chaos podcast, where we talk publicly about the things you're worried about privately. My name is Angela Alea, and I'm your host. This is the event industry podcast for companies and crew, where we're going to dive deep into things like, what does our industry need that it just doesn't have? What are the things you want to know, but you're just too afraid to ask? And what are the biggest opportunities ahead for our industry? We're going to go deep, and nothing is off limits. Welcome back to Corralling the Chaos. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of community and the friends and relationships we have all made along the way that quite honestly have carried many of us when we've had our tough moments, tough days, tough months, or for many in our industry, a tough few years. So today, our guest that's going to help us talk about this is Eric Newkirk. He is the vice president at Sevco, which is an AVFX company. He's been at Sevco for 25 years, has spent 36 years in live events. He is also the current president of Event Production Network, formerly known as RSN. He is most proud of his family who have supported him in such a demanding career, which I think we can all relate to that, right? Our families have been there for us, but he also enjoys getting to work with so many of his clients on some of their most important projects. So welcome, Eric, to the show.
Thanks for having me, Angela.
So 36 years in live events, huh? We could probably talk all day about that. I'm sure you've got quite a few stories. But I do want to spend a few minutes here. So tell us a little bit about how you got in the industry, why you've stayed in it 36 years even.
Gosh, it's crazy. It's it was a high school theater bug that I caught. It was walking on stage. I was told by my dad that I need to take theater so that I can learn how to speak with others, learn how to conduct yourself in a small audience. And when I got there, they were using hammers the wrong way. They were using the tools, and they were going to hurt themselves. So I quickly got onto the tech side, and that's where I stayed. So, gosh, that was high school, and we did a lot of special events in high school, putting on the dances and all that stuff, and it just carried me through my college years with a BA in theater, but still stuck with live events and did the concert work. Did not so much touring, but local music scene, local arenas and amphitheater work during the summers, and then moved on to what would be a more sustainable career in professional AV and live event production. And here we are today, doing what I'm still passionate about from when I was probably 16 or 17 years old.
It's so interesting you say you got your start in theater. I feel like so many of our guests that we've asked that question to, they say the same thing. So what a great kind of launch pad for our industry. I think that's fantastic. So that's what got you into the industry. What are some of the things that have kept you in the industry?
Being valued for what you know and have skills at is at the core of why I continue to do what I do. It's great that I can make a living at it. It's great that I can raise a family and be a part of a community. Being involved with something that's special to a core group of people. It's typically centered around a meaning or a purpose or a message that's got to get out. And sometimes it's very overt in its sales oriented, meaning, we want you to buy more of our products so that we can make more money, so that we can pay more people and we can feed their families. I get that, and I think that's great. I think there's definitely a place for all of that. But I think that when it comes to producing events that have a core center to them that is basic on a human level, it's way more meaningful, and I look forward to reaching the highs and the lows and taking audiences on journeys. That is the thrill for me.
Any specific journeys that are most memorable to you, or big things that you were a part of when you talk about your purpose, right? Being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. So any particular memorable events that you're a part of? that were meaningful to you personally?
I guess once you get past being a part of a crew on one of your one of your childhood favorite artists. I guess I was a big fan of the Police and Sting, and when I was doing a show, and it was a it was a 18,000 person uh, concert event. We'd done all the setup and everything, and I'm going through the catering line at lunchtime, and I'm getting some of my cold cuts for my sandwich, and right behind me is the artist, and when you're standing right next to the person that you've seen perform and you've seen in all these music videos and stuff, and they're just a normal person, and you can relate to them one to one. How's your day? How you enjoying Colorado? Different conversations like that are just those are things that I remember. I would say that you talk about those kind of situations, and some people can get starstruck and just like hopefully you disappear. You don't want to be noticed, but I embrace that moment, and I think other things like an annual meeting where the president of the company has got a lot on the line. He's got one opportunity to make it right and to get that message across. Those are also really important to me. I always appreciate being included in their family. I just consider myself an extended part of the family, somebody who they get to see for a week out of the year, and they welcome you with open arms. Those are the kinds of relationships that we look for.
Yeah, when the stakes are high, you can't help but people can't help but pull together, right, to kind of focus on the execution of that. It's funny
Yeah.
as I was saying, like, what are some of those journeys that are most memorable? My mind immediately went to, I wonder how many people listening to this, like all the cool stories and all the things, the aha moments, the things where they were like, man, this is the coolest industry. Only here do I get to do X. Only here do I get to see X. Only here do I get to be a part of accomplishing this, right? Like I'm part of this success. Um, and you're right. I mean, I think we take, it's not just the execution of the show. It's how does that change us? I, I'm the first to admit I steal shamelessly all the time when I'm you know, uh, uh, just a fly on a wall listening to some of these, even these keynotes. And I have two kids; they're teenagers now, 16 and 14. But I always leave just inspired because to your point, right? Like some of these are owners, they're presidents, they're CEOs. These are people who have accomplished like the impossible, and their stories are inspiring, and I take those stories home and I tell my kids, and I want to like pour it into them, like if they could only hear this story, right? Or be here. And so I think that is where just so much of that magic happens, and I think we're also fortunate to get a literal front row seat into some of these things. So I think that's great. And I'm sure many of you listening have really cool stories too. So we might make that another topic for another time because I think that would be really cool to kind of pull all of that together. Um, well, tell us about EPN and why is that so near and dear to your heart? I know we at LASA have participated in EPN. We have thoroughly enjoyed it because of the camaraderie, because of the real authentic conversations, the partnerships, the friendships. And it is a unique group, unlike any other, because I think the companies who participate there, um, you all just have each other. You talk about the things that you're probably scared to talk about. It's just very real, and it's like open books. And I think that our industry has um, some things to learn about that because I think so many times our industry is skeptical. They try to hold back. I don't want to show people, the dysfunction behind the curtain. I'm afraid to talk about it, but if I don't talk about it, I'm never going to solve it. And I feel like EPN, man, when I think about those companies, many of them are our customers and clients. Like, I so admire that because I think it takes guts. So tell everybody else about EPN and why it's so near and dear to your heart.
Okay. Well, on the on the surface, it's a networking group, right? But when you dive in a little deeper and you look at what the core values of the group are, I really believe that adherence to those core values is what has kept it special because I want to say we're close to 12, 13, 14 years. I'm embarrassed that I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it's getting up there in terms of from its inception. But it could have taken several paths along the way, and certainly the success of the member companies in terms of economic performance and viable companies is really important to the organization. We wouldn't be who we are without the membership. But but our core values are a sense of community, trust in one another, and shared knowledge. What's important to note about all those things is there's not a single thing about making more money. There's not a single thing about ensuring profitability. There's not a single thing in shareholder value, etc. What that tells me is that it's more important to be in the room and to share valuable conversations and have difficult discussions with people that are struggling with some of the same challenges that you are. If you can have a conversation with somebody about it, and they're going to be willing to share what their experience has been, good, bad, and ugly. It's going to help move the needle for you in your business, whatever the challenge is. It can be talent oriented. It can be profit oriented. It can be transportation. It can be supply chain issues. All those topics can come up over a couple of days at some of the meetings. We hold events every every quarter with the principals, and we also do deeper dives with the organization within the departments, say HR and IT and accounting. You have peers in the industry because all of the member companies are small businesses. The trust core value comes from that. You don't necessarily have to worry about sharing some of your nitty gritty details when you know that you don't have immediate competitors in the room, and so that trust is the starting point, and it's the building block for being able to have those conversations, be able to experience some of the growth that you can by sharing. And then when you have this principle of shared knowledge, it's you've got a best practice in your business. Um, you better believe that there are others that are going to be interested in how you've made that work for your client base. Do all 27 member companies share in the same profile of businesses? No, absolutely not. They're small businesses. They run themselves independently, and and they have their own belief systems and their own value structure. And some members come and some members go, and that's okay. If the ownership structure of the business changes and their priorities change, then they may not be a good fit. But by and large, if you're in this community for those same core values, you're contributing to the success of the entire network, and you can take little bits of knowledge that you learn along the way and share it out with your team. Um, these are just the core principles of what the EPN stands for.
I love that. So, community, trust, shared knowledge. And
Bingo.
you talked about the principles of these companies and sometimes department heads. And when I think about the ownership and even operators of these companies, it can be a really lonely place, especially the last few years, right? Because you're having to lead from a position of strength, even though you might feel like you're on shaky ground, right? You've got to lead the team and make sure they feel like they're on solid ground. So I think it can be a lonely place when you don't have somebody to really talk to. And I think the importance of having a peer group is, I mean, let's face it, that friend group within the industry is really so important, because if you don't have somebody that you can just speak candidly about and say, hey, I'm really scared about this, or hey, I'm thinking about trying this, or hey, let me learn from you. What are you doing that's working? And having the humility to ask those things, because no one has all the answers, but together there's a whole lot more answers and solutions to be had when you kind of put that brain power together. So I love those pillars. I love what you all have set up with the authenticity, the trust, right? Like being able to come to the table and say, this is what I'm trying, this is what I'm doing, and it works. And I'm going to tell you because you're my friend. You said it before, friend over money.
Yeah.
And that's
Friends are
so
better than money.
important.
But yeah, friends are better than money.
Yeah.
When you're in a foreign territory, you've taken the show on the road, or your client takes you on the road. It is priceless to be able to have a friend in that market who will
Mhm.
drop whatever they're doing to help you out of whatever hole or challenge your client has put you in. And let's be honest, that's kind of why we're in this game. We started this call with that principle, is that we like the challenge. We love going into a mission. It's almost militaristic when you think about it, but we prepare and prepare and prepare, and then we go, and it's all in for that client, for that week, for that day, or whatever it is. And if you can have the knowledge that somebody's got your back, and then also working on the business, you can reach out to somebody, and when you share as often as we do, like I said, those 3 times a year, you start to get to know, oh, this company is working on this. I'm reminded of a story that I heard just last week. I think it actually was 2 weeks ago. We met in Denver, coincidentally, for our fall meeting, and we heard a story about what a company is working on in the RFID world. And RFID is asset tracking with on steroids, right? We're all doing this barcode scanning in the
Mhm.
warehouses, and RFID has been around for a long time, but it's been difficult to adopt in our business because we've got cases and we've got hundreds and hundreds of cables and all this stuff.
Mhm.
Is like working through that challenge um, is really daunting for a small business. And
Yeah.
so a company that shared what their exploration of that has been, and the intellectual property, the R&D that has gone into developing that process. There have been so many people waiting with bated breath to see what the results of that little experiment have been, so that they can dive in as well. And once you know the water is safe to swim in, you do want to jump in most cases. But sometimes somebody will come back to the group and say, this didn't work out. This was a struggle that we had with it, and we're going to put it back on the back burner for a while, and then wait for it to cook a little more. Um, but yeah, RFID was just one example. This year, I want to mention that our focus has been on talent. Our focus has been on where do the good people come from, and how do we get more of them. And I applaud Lasso for being a part of that big challenge in our industry. And um, I hope that we all get through this recovery. I mean, it's a weird thing to say, but the recovery of the industry should be a great thing, right? But I find more companies are struggling with growth challenges, and where to find more people and where to find good people, and it's been a question of what kind of projects can you say no to in this rebound, and just managing that in a healthy way for our industry is really what the EPN has been focused on, and trying to give our members the tools, uh, recruiting and talent management, and
Mhm.
workforce development, and all those kinds of things, resources for those member companies to latch onto, and to help rebuild their companies.
Yeah, you literally just mentioned like 8 or 9 massive initiatives, uphill battles, if you will, that every single one of these companies is facing. And I always tell my kids, safety in numbers.
Yeah.
And it's so true with EPN even, having that place that you can go to feel safe. You even just said, "Hey, let somebody else try it out," right? That, like, they might have tried out the RFID, somebody else might be trying out a new talent acquisition strategy, right? And then coming back and think, just think about how much faster all of you can move without everyone trying all 9 things. It's a way to fail fast, learn fast, move fast, and I just think
Absolutely.
those relationships and, those real conversations are more important, and I wish our industry did more of that. I think our industry, it's changing, but I feel like over the years, I've seen so much skepticism and so much, "I'm hiding my thing, and I'm not gonna share," and I feel like we need more sharing, more authenticity, more transparency. I'm gonna say it, more unapologetic leadership, take the risk, do the things, um, and I think EPN is just the epitome of that. When I think about the business leaders in that group, how they operate, the framework in which they make their decisions, and so I think that's fantastic. I think there's so much good there. And for those of you that don't have a peer group, I encourage you to check it out and find your peer group. It doesn't even have to be something formal. Find another business owner, find another operator, find somebody else, ask questions, and that's typically where I find so many of those connections happening, is by being humble enough and vulnerable enough to ask questions, admit you don't know, ask for help, and I think that's where, so much of that goodness and success happens. So,
You bet. You
um
bet. I don't mind sharing that. I think that every single member represents a major market in the North American territory. So if there's a listener out there who's a part of a freelance community and you love to do shows, but you're not attached to one company, you can you can connect with these member companies. The values that we share in the EPN also connect to these companies, and so sharing and learning and contributing to best practices. I dare any freelancer to go out there and find one of the EPN member companies that is not willing to do that, that is not willing to embrace a contractor who's interested in raising their game. Every single AV company, live event producer is interested in their local community and what it takes to build um, a strong talent pool in their own backyard, as well as the markets that they serve. So many of us travel and maintain databases of freelancers and people you can really count on in faraway lands, right?
Absolutely. Well, Eric, tell us about your role at Sevco. What do you do for them?
Oh, well, I'm the VP of Design and Creative. I manage a small team of content creators. We kind of draw the line at writing and producing and message crafting, but we do a lot of motion graphics, a lot of PowerPoint redesign, touchscreen interactive. Really proud of our Boston and Denver-based teams that help develop content for clients who say, you know what, there's a better way to tell this story through some kind of animation or some kind of quick graphics, and even some other long format video production where we'll come out on location and do some shooting and stuff. So a lot of that is really just you've got the message. Let us help you deliver it in the most meaningful way. So I find a lot of fulfillment in working with that team. We also do some scenic design. You know, collaborating with our lighting designers who work in CAD and making renderings that are just a little bit more lifelike and help create a scenic environment. That kind of goes back to my theatrical training, but we work with clients to help elevate the stage set experience to a certain degree, and a lot of them love to throw out Super Bowl halftime shows and and the Emmys and the Oscars and like, can we do something like that? Absolutely, with a few caveats, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anything's possible with the right budget and the right resources.
Right, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right. Well, I love that. To me, I mean, that's the essence of any show, right? Is the creativity.
Yeah,
It's all that goes into that, right? So I love that. You're literally sitting right in the middle of the magic of the shows, the essence of it. So I think that's
yeah,
fantastic. No wonder you've stuck around for 36 years in this industry. You're one of the creatives and passionate about that, telling stories. And there's so many more stories to be told, especially as our world is evolving and changing so much. You're not having to tell the same story over and over and over, which I think is makes it fun too.
for sure, for sure. You just need to pay attention to what's happening around us, and just kind of ask the five whys, right? Why is this way, and why is it? Just having that curious mind just gives you, the ability to explore topics that are just amazing. I was talking with a woman who had recently retired, and she said she's taken up quilting, and I was like, that is just an amazing craft, and she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, you're telling stories with the work that you're doing, right? It's
Yeah.
it's it's heritage. It's a part of you, and it's a part of your family. It's a part of your life. So, and she was like, gosh, you're really smart. And I was like, no, no, no,
I
no.
bet
I,
she never
I
even
just,
thought of it that way,
I just,
right? She
I
just
just
did what
paid
comes
attention.
natural.
You just, yeah, if you can pay attention, art tells a story, and you just need to be receptive to it. And I think filtering out all the noise and
Hmm.
getting that isolation is really important. I talk to a lot of clients um, about uh, the theatrical convention that is, directing your audience's attention. What are they going to look at? What are they going to see? I love it when clients say, okay, we're going to have a panel discussion. And I'm like, okay, so pay attention to what the people who are not seeing anything are doing, right? Because your audience is going to be distracted by anything that happens over on the other end of the panel discussion, right? You need to give your energy to the person who's speaking, and even if you disagree with them, which hopefully happens, right? Panel discussions are more interesting when you have contradictory points of view. Let's uh, bring in somebody who says, no, I think you're wrong, and here's why, right? I think that makes for great learning. I think there's a lot to be said for having alternative perspectives, and when you have one and you can have a voice to do that, then you need to embrace it. And gosh, I feel like I went down a little bit of
No, no, no.
a side trail there with
No,
that.
no, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. But you kinda teased us a little bit there. I wanna go back and ask, you mentioned the 5 whys, and I think you went through 2. Tell our audience the 5 whys.
Well, I think the five whys are just a challenging way to get to the core of what it is, because you're not going to get to it with four. The
Mhm,
principle is that you need to go deeper,
mhm.
and the five whys are just that principle that says you need to keep trying, because as mature as you may be, and as tuned in to what you think the reason is for why something is the way that it is, there might be more to it, right? So
Yeah, peeling
um,
back that onion.
yeah, and having those assumptions at the surface doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. And so if you can get to the kernel, the core truth, there's uh, there's a lot that can be learned by that. And when you uh, yeah, the onion is a great analogy, but I think there's also this sort of other analogy that is scar tissue, right? You built this protective layering around this core issue, and if you get to those five whys, you can get to that core issue. Then you've unpeeled all kinds of baggage that, I mean, things have changed. People have moved on. Your reason for protecting that why, that fundamental why you're doing something the way that you're doing it, that's probably changed, right? If you've been doing something the same way for 10 years, ask yourself why. Why?
I feel like our industry has just lived in that concept for the past 2 years. Why do we always do it this way? Why?
Yeah.
Why? Right? Just
Yeah.
challenge and challenge and challenge
For sure.
again until you get to the point of, yeah, okay, that's stinking thinking. We're looking at it differently because we're forced to. And I might,
Mhm.
go kicking and screaming, but I'm removing the scar tissue. And now that I understand that, like, we got to go. So I
Yeah.
love that.
We all had to ditch the theatrical mindset and adopt a broadcast mindset, and I think those who did it and did it well are really
Hmm.
thankful for it. But fortunately, we're seeing some recovery in the business, and that is all good, because I think that who was a good friend of mine, Don Ramika, said 17 times more effective to meet in person. So I'm just going to go with it. He said he had some scientific backing on that data. So we're just going to attribute that to Don. And if you know
Don
Don,
and his
yeah,
scientific data.
yeah, there you go.
Yes. Well, this has been great. As we wrap up today, I think you've reminded us of a number of things. The importance of our friendships in the industry, the three pillars that I think kind of go along with that with EPN, which is community, building those friendships, that network, the trust, being vulnerable and being trustworthy and sharing knowledge when that trust is there, the ability to share the knowledge and all that comes with that. So I think those are really important. And we all invest so much of our lives in this industry and doing what we love. And you mentioned passion, Eric. And so why not invest in those relationships that can really carry us when we need it? I mean, as you said, friends over money, it's more important. So don't lose sight of the purpose. You talked about the purpose, being service and community. And again, if you don't have your own community, go build it. Go build your own peer network. Lean on each other and be strong when somebody needs to lean on you. And I just think those are all really important lessons. And I appreciate you joining us today to really dive into that. And so thank you for joining us. Thank you all for listening. If you like what you hear, subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, reach out to us at podcast@lasso.io.